Hi all, this is going to be the last summer update I think for the garden for 2021. Um, I'd like to make one more plug for the Magnificent Garden fertilizer line. I've used it as a spot check on everything in this garden. I had my one tester patch with the sunchokes where I only use that as fertilizer, but I've used it on everything else and I've been really impressed with it. I just didn't really call it my tester patch or plug for it out here as much because there was other fertilizers that I used as well. But I can really notice the difference, and that was the only liquid fertilizer I was using to give everything a boost towards the end of summer to keep it green and lush and producing through the last bit. So yeah, get Magnificent Garden. It's great stuff. This rose bush has done really well. That's staying. This rose bush right here is not staying. This right here is what the flowering characteristic is like for it. The bush died back to below the graft, so this is the hardy rootstock, and this is its flowering and growing characteristic. As you can see, it's like kind of viney and it's flopping over. That's really not a characteristic of a domesticated rose. This plant structure is supposed to look more like this. So I'm just going to take this out and put in a new rose and hopefully protect it better over the winter so it doesn't die back below the graft and give me a big sprawling ugly flower thing again. The blackberries have done really well. Those are going to start fruiting next year. The red raspberries are doing well as well, have lots of fruit starting for the first year, and this is going to continue to fruit through September. Once it gets too cold, the canes are going to die. It gets cut back to the ground, and then it comes back up next year. This one fruits every year. The blackberries fruit on second year growth. I'm pretty happy with how the ribes, the currants and gooseberries have worked out. It takes a few years for them to really get to production size, but we've been eating a little bit of them through this year already, and they're very healthy with, the exception of this guy who the squirrels have dug up at least 5 times. So I may replace that one next year. The pollinator patch has been doing really well. It's pretty much all that did real well was the borage, but it filled out this whole patch. One exception is this red-leafed amaranth, which is amaranth grown for the leaves, and Sarah really likes it, and I really like it. It's a self-seeding annual, so now that we've planted it here, as long as I leave it and let it go to seed, it's going to come back year after year, and I'm happy with that. We like that, so that's staying. For the tomatoes, so far, the keepers are the Super Sweet 100 cherry tomatoes. That's this guy here. This guy here. Those have been putting out. We've been harvesting a bunch. The slicing tomatoes have not done especially well. The paste tomatoes have done very well. That's these San Marizanos. I'm going to plant Romas instead of San Marizanos next year, but same thing, and it does well. Slicing tomatoes, I think they take longer to mature, and they haven't been getting enough water, so they've all been cracking, and it's just nobody wants to slice a cracked tomato, for sandwiches and stuff. The kohlrabi is not coming back next year. Reason being is, take a look in there. Those are supposed to all be bulbs about the size of a baseball. Like, this guy's ready to harvest. These guys, not so much. And they went in first thing in the spring. They've been here all summer. They're just not growing fast enough, and they don't get big enough for me to justify spending the space on them again. For the carrots, I'm going to plant more carrots. I'm going to do it in a different area because water was coming from that stump over there, and the carrots were getting hidden behind this big cherry tomato plant. So those just didn't get enough water where they are. But I'm going to do more. The okra has done very well, and I'm very happy with it. I have enough to finally make one batch of pickled okra, and I love pickled okra. So I'm doing it again, but I'm just not going to put any tomatoes like right up next to where the the sprinkler head is, because it shades out everything behind it, stops it from getting watered, and it doesn't grow well. Of the 2 or 3 varieties of kale that I grew, this dwarf blue curled kale is the one that held up best over the summer heat. So I'm going to plant that again. I'm probably not going to plant this red Russian kale. This is a very cold weather kale. It can stand temperatures down to like, I think, -10 or something like that. But so you really plant that in the fall, and you have it out in the garden, and you can harvest it during the winter. Well, I'm not doing that this year because I'm planting cover crops. That's why I'm taking everything out a little early, is to give time for the cover crops to get established. So maybe in a few years I'll try that again as a cool weather kale. But it doesn't hold up to the summer heat, and I need the space for other cool weather stuff. The cucumbers are starting to slow down. You can see it's getting a little yellowed and stuff, but they produced heavily all year. Definitely going to do more, and I like the pickling cucumbers better than slicing anyway, so more pickling cucumbers. The tomatillos definitely made it through the season. I've harvested a ton of tomatillos, and I'm going to harvest more and going to get more. Grow more next year. The strawberry patch has gotten planted out well enough to make it through the winter and have these little guys survive and start growing next year. So my goal next year for this strawberry patch is to have it all the way filled out, including this back area that I was using as a compost pile. I've gone through most of this. Trees I like. The yellow pear cherry tomatoes have been getting shaded out by this tree, so I have a lot of fruit that's ripe, but not nearly as much as I'd want, so I'm probably going to plant those in a different area and plant something that's more shade tolerant under the tree. More peppers. Next year, instead of planting peppers that you really use fresh, I'm going to plant peppers that you can dry. My focus has been my focus next year is going to be on stuff that I can dry and store, rather than stuff that needs to be eaten fresh. I like fresh food, but for the amount of space I have to dry it. I have to preserve it. I've ended up throwing out especially so much zucchini, or donating it or something. I've harvested 150 pounds of zucchini. I'm just not eating that much. Mushrooms, no action yet. In the mushroom logs, but I think next year I'll start to see some growth on the ends. Really, it's supposed to take a few years for those to fully colonize. And last, acorn squash. You can tell it's summer heat and it hasn't been watered in a couple days because I'm not wasting water on it because I'm harvesting. But a lot of acorn squash. They're small, but they're ready to harvest and they should taste fine. And that's one of the few things I planted that will store. So next year I'm planting a whole bunch of stuff that will store long term. I'm doing a lot less stuff that's meant to be eaten fresh. And I think that's my lesson learned for this year, is to, I don't eat as much as I think I do. So now I've got to start chopping everything down. And until next year, I'll see you guys again. Actually, I'll probably make a video of how to cover crop and, highlighting the hairy vetch that I'm using. But yeah, take care, y'all. It's been a fun year. Bye.